All yours, brother.
If you do that, you're a Derek.
It's yours here. We'll talk about that. If you come to it one time, and then we Shabbat early enough to go over there.
Yeah, we're good.
You're jealous of me?
Yeah,
I'm not jealous. You ate all the, just like you ate all the chickens.
Don't be defensive, I was talking about
No.
I'm like Dave, I'm a big teaser. You know, you gotta learn to laugh at yourself, so when I'm laughing,
beginning and we will never thirst again.
Okay, hold on for just a minute, Mick. I'm gonna change screens. All right, you can have it back.
Devarim. Anything here on there? Yeah, good. All right. So it's Devarim, which means words, right?
Words.
All right. So Deuteronomy 1:1. These are the words which Moshe spoke to all Israel beyond the Jordan, in the wilderness, the desert plains opposite Suf, between Paran, Holpah, Laman, HafTorah, and Brit HaDasha. So I'll put the arrow here to show you, to note the direction of reading of Hebrew. It's from right to left. It says, Ale, HaDevarim, Asher, Devar, Moshe. So the word Devar and HaDevarim means words, but Devar also can mean that he spoke, right? So these are the words that Moshe spoke to. These are the words of Moshe. Some of my highlighting got missed here, but so for the most part, doesn't mean word. It can be chronicles, saying sentences. And then here's the other one. Was it's just to speak, right? To declare, speak, be a spokesman, and that is what Moshe was. He was a spokesman for Yahweh, right? Moshe, there's no law of Moshe, but anytime you hear that in the scriptures, that's actually Yahweh. Right? Where Moshe was just a humble man who spoke the Father's words. So this term Deuteronomy, this is a Greek term, right? Comes from the word deuteros, second, and nomos, which means law. So they call it the second law. But this is an improper translation of Deuteronomy 17:18, chapter 15. So right here, this is what it looks like actually in the text in the Greek. You can kind of see the words. I don't know if anybody is very familiar with Greek, but you can see it says Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy, right there. And that's what it says right here. And it shall be, when the king sits on his throne, his reign, that he shall write for himself a copy, and that word for copy is Mishnah, of this Torah in a book from one of the priests before the Levites, right? So that was the actual meaning, was should have been copy, right? That's what this is, a copy of what was said before. So this is actually from the Encyclopedia Britannica, and I don't agree with everything they're saying there, but they have a pretty interesting statement. The title of Deuteronomy derives from the Greek, thus means copy or repetition of law rather than second law, as the word's etymology seems to suggest. Although Deuteronomy is presented as an address by Moses, scholars generally agree with the scholars, right, for their own purposes, that it dates from a much later period of Israelite history. Now, I don't agree with that. I think it was written right there at their feet, right at the mountain. But this here is amazing. An early edition of Deuteronomy, as it exists today, has been identified with the Book of the Law, discovered in the Temple in Jerusalem about 622 BC. That's old, right? 2,600-year-old book, right? That's pretty old. That's an amazing thing where a lot of people don't even like it. Because I've been told this from a guy who actually came and gave us a Torah scroll, a 100-year-old Torah scroll. He worked for the Jewish Antiquities Authority. He says we got him dating back to 700-800 BC, real close to the time of Solomon, right? It's like, but they don't want to admit that because that steps on a couple of people's toes. That's why you get stuck with the date that 300 BC is the earliest findings that we have. But they said they found entire caves filled with Torah scrolls, and the reason they did that was because the Torah is living, right? So when the scroll got worn out, you don't just burn it or anything like that. You treat it with respect. It got buried, right? And new scrolls copied. And they would operate out of that one again until that one fell apart, right? So way back, way back. So they know things, but they don't think that. It happens all over the place. Okay, so Mishnah. You guys have some of you probably heard of Mishnah before, right? So Mishnah in Hebrew just means a repetition, duplicate, double copy. The word Shana, that's kind of the same. So Shana is the root. You just put the im on the front, or the mim on the front of Shana, and you get Mishnah, right? It means to duplicate, again, or repeat. You'll see a little bit later on that it talks about like the year is the Shana, right? So double that second. So we'll talk about the Mishnah, right? So the Mishnah is the main text of the Talmud. It is a Jewish oral tradition, oral Torah or oral tradition, right? So this is where we get most of this from, oral Torah. We've heard that before. It was apparently written after the destruction of the temple and finished around 200 CE. They call it the Jerusalem Talmud. And then we have a second part of it that goes up all the way to like 900 AD called the Gemara, which is primarily discussions about the Mishnah, right? So unfortunately, this book gets held in higher regard than the Torah a lot of times in certain circles, which is that's a sin. Okay. There's interesting things in there, but it should never be held in regard above the written word of Yahweh.
I read it.
And so then why read it, right? That's a good question, right? If you are not very well founded in Torah, don't read it, please, because you will get confused. If you have a good foundation and you feel led to talk to your brothers, your Jewish brothers, right, to help them, this is where they live. They live in this book, right? They memorize it. So you're not going to reach them with just the Torah. You're not going to reach them with words of Yeshua. unless you can show that Yeshua is something, there's some things that actually edify him in there. So that would be the reason why you read it. If you're not, if that's not your thing, then let's get out of it, right? Go ahead.
I don't know if you're going to say this, but I know that many Jewish schools teach the Mishnah first, and then it's through the eyes of the Mishnah that you look at the Torah. So the Torah has to fit within their opinions. Otherwise, if it deviates from the Talmud, then they take the Talmud first.
Yes. And that is some schools, right? And that can be verified if you go on Aleph Beta and listen to Rabbi David Foreman. He'll talk about how he does teach Torah, and he'll talk about how he'll get some people from the East Coast, and they'll be like, "What are you doing?" You know, they primarily just read the Talmud, and they say, "Oh well, we are getting the Torah out of the Talmud, right?" They don't quote a section, and then you'll hear 100 different opinions on that section. And what that does is that teaches you how to. That starts, and they're not the only ones that do this, right? So you go into any church today, and they're going to say, "Oh well, that's not for you. That's done away with." That they're doing exactly the same thing, right? They're trying to peel you away from the truth, and ultimately, who's responsible for that? It wasn't Yeshua, right? Okay, so that's a different spirit. But it's not to rag on any one group. Everybody, it's a mankind problem, right? So you do some science too. There's good science out there, but then there's somebody sitting there telling you how to, oh yeah, we found this evidence, but then that says that there's no God, right? So when it's not true, that was all glorified, right? That's how science was originally started by people who believed in Yahweh, who believed in the word, and they wanted to glorify him. The people snuck in, and they perverted it for their purposes. Okay, so Shana Tova. Okay, Shana Tova means have a good year or a sweet year. This gets done around the time of what we're coming up on, which is Yom Teruah. It's called Rosh Hashanah. It's something that came back with the dispersion out of Babylon. This Rosh Hashanah, the head of the new year, the actual scriptural new year, is on the new lunar month of Aviv. And that's what the Torah actually says. It's going to be the first day of the first month is the beginning of the true new year, according to Yahweh out of his mouth, right? He said, "This is the new year to you." So, I'm just saying this is where you can hear the Shana Torah, right?
It starts in spring.
Shana, it's there, right? And it is kind of, has been translated with year, right? Shana. Because it means to repeat, and years repeat. So, in Hebraic thought, cyclical thinking is everything happens in cycles, right? It's every year, we'll read the Torah again, learn something new, plant your some crops and all that. So, just a brief explanation of some of these, a little rabbi trail. So the month, right? More rabbi trail, right? Month originally signified the time of one revolution of the moon or a new lunation. In this tense, we still use the word month. If you go, and this is from the Webster's 1828 dictionary. There's several months in here, which is kind of interesting because there's actually a solar month, and that one has to do with the constellations and the sun moving through different constellations throughout the year, and they have different lengths. One has to do with the rotation of the moon, the other one has to do with lunar phases, and the other one has to do with solar as the sun moves through different parts of the zodiac. Okay, so back on topic here. So Moshe said, "I am not a man of words," right? He was talking to Yahweh at the burning bush. He didn't want to go, right? He said, and Moshe said to Yahweh, "Oh Yahweh, I am not a man of words. Neither before nor since have you spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." Right? So right here, Ve'amar, this is Moshe spoke. Ve'amar Moshe, Yahweh, Pe Adoni, that's my master. Lo, Aish, Devarim, right? So Lo, Aish, Devarim, not a man of words. Okay? So he's kind of got this whole, like, this morning I had this instance with my child, We spilled cereal all over the floor, and we said, clean that up. Oh, I can't do it. Right? I can't do it. Yahweh responds, right? Yahweh said to him, who made man's mouth and who makes the dumb or the deaf, the seeing or the blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? And now go, I shall be with your mouth and teach you what to say. I'll teach you how to use that broom to clean up that cereal. Right? You're going to clean up that cereal. I don't care how you feel about it, you're going to clean up that mess, right? I don't care how you feel about it, you're going to go get your brothers out of the lane, right? That's kind of how it is. There's a lot of things with Yahweh when it comes to a prophet. You're going to do what he tells you to do. If you don't believe me, read the book of Jonah.
Oh, yeah.
And Jonah did not want to save. He did not want to save Nineveh, right? If you know anything about the history of these guys, they skinned people alive. They were the authors of torture. They were killing the children of Israel, taking them captive, and that's what this was the
captive. They led them around by the rings in their nose.
Their nose, skinned them alive. They don't find the horrible stuff too.
Yeah.
Fish slappers too.
Yeah, the fish slappers is what they so he didn't want to do it, but Yahweh said, you're going to do this, right? And the fish ate him up and kept him up on the beach, right? And I'm going to Nineveh.
Isn't Nineveh known as Iraq today?
I believe it's in the plains of Shinar, so it'd be around Iraq and Iran, between right around the rivers Euphrates and Tigris. Yeah, I believe that's where they found Babylon, like right around there. So that means that area right there would have been the cities that Nimrod had set up.
Yeah, they were Nimrodites.
Nimrodites, so it's quite a ways over there too. It's not real close to Israel. Actually, it's a ways over on the other side of Saudi Arabia. Okay, so at the end of his life, we get this book, right? Moshe's about to die. It says, these are the words which Moshe spoke to all Yisrael beyond the Yarden in the wilderness in the desert plains opposite of Suf, between Paran, Kopel, Laban, Tatarot, and Isaac. And it says here, Ale, HaDevarim, Asher, Devar, Moshe, Loki, Yisrael. Okay? HaDevarim, these are the words which Moshe spoke. For a guy who was, like it says in the Fiddler on the roof. Yeah, for a guy who was slow of speech, you got a lot to say, right? Yeah. Okay. So why does there need to be a retelling? So there is a retelling going on, right? Because we just read all this, and they just went through these places, and now we go in this new book, and it's telling it again. This is a new generation. These people that did not see the wonders of Yahweh. They didn't see all the miracles, the sea get split, they didn't see his judgment on Mitzrayim and all that stuff. They didn't see it. So their fathers are dead because of their sin. And now they need to be equipped to go into the land. And so you notice here, the closer you draw to Yahweh, the higher the expectation. The higher expectation to righteousness is. This is why Nadab and Abihu were struck dead. Unfortunately, they didn't have a lot of instruction. They didn't get a lot of time to get it right, but he's not going to change who he is for you.
That's right.
He's going to be who he is, whether you like it or not. And the closer you draw to him, you find that out. He's not going to change that. Go ahead.
Idolatry today is having a Yah of your own convenience that makes it your own particular sin.
Ew, yes.
And this is what most people have.
Yes. Yeah, they built a golden calf, haven't they?
Yes.
They made their own golden calf. It's got the same name,
Right.
but it's got a different character. That's the biggest problem, is we got a different character that's being taught. That was his anger against the children of Israel. So they were so close yet so far. Right? They were 11 days' journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. And it came to be in the 40th year, in the 11th new moon, on the first day of the new moon, that Moshe spoke to the children of Israel according to all that Yahweh had commanded them concerning them. Only 11 days away, but 40 years to get there, right? There was stuff that happened, so what happened? What you just said. The words they could speak. And what did they say? And they said to Moshe, did you take us away to die in the wilderness because there are no burial sites in Mitzrayim? What is this you have done to us to bring us up out of Mitzrayim? Is this not the word we spoke to you in Mitzrayim? Say, leave us alone that we may serve the Mitzrayites. For it would have been better for us to serve the Mitzrayites than to die in this wilderness. This is on the edge, right after they got delivered. They haven't even gone into the wilderness yet, and they're already complaining. They just started. And here in Numbers 21:5, and the people spoke against Elohim and said, Moshe, why have you brought us up out of Mitzrayim to die in the wilderness? For is there no food? For there is no food or no water, and our being loaves this light bread. And you remember in the Brit HaDasha, that light bread was Yeshua, right? I am the bread of life that came down, right?
Despise the manna.
Despise the manna, it despises the Messiah. Despise the Messiah, change his character into one that is not his character, right? Goes back to faith. So in this very chapter right here. But you would not go up and rebel against the mouth of Yahweh your Elohim, and grumbled in your tents because Yahweh, right? Grumbled in your tents because Yahweh was feeding us. He has brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim to give us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us. That's what they're saying, right? They had changed his character. That's not his character, is it? He brought them out to deliver them because he gave a promise to his people. He loved them when he brought them out. It might have been a little bit hard. He didn't do it their way. He didn't bring them out with air conditioning and $40,000 or $100,000 motorhome or anything like that, right? It was, they were on foot. It was hot. There was no food. Maybe a couple of days without water and food. But they brought them out and still got delivered. So in this matter, you are putting no trust in Yahweh your Elohim, who is going before you to seek a place for you, to pitch your tents, to show you the way you should go, in fire by night and in cloud by day. So if your Elohim hates you, why would he cover you in the heat of the day and give you light in the night? Why would he bring down manna for you every single day for 40 years? But he hates you, he brought you out to die. We can get that in our head, right? It's real easy to go, oh no.
You're stubborn and thick neck.
Not always from people, right? We get scared. My kids do that. Right? My kids will like, oh my God, Dad, we're lost. It's like, no, you don't know where we are. I know where I'm going. We'll get home here in a minute. I'll get you. Right? Just calm down, enjoy the ride. Sorry, Bruce. So the good news, right? So in Hebrews here it says, therefore the promise remains from us entering into his rest. Let us fear lest any of you seem to have come short of it. For indeed the good news was brought to us as well as them. This is speaking to those in the wilderness, right? But the word which they heard did not profit them, not having been mixed with meat in those who heard it. So they saw the signs and wonders. They saw everything. They saw the deliverance. They ate the manna. They saw Yahweh just triumph all over Mitzrayim, right? Egypt. But they didn't believe it. They knew the gospel. They lost faith and they grumbled about their situation. I will believe in Yahweh as long as you do things my way. It's kind of the mentality. You think that's operating today? Yeah. That's all over the place. Huh? They don't change. They're probably smarter than we are. I'm not kidding. You do your research and find out there's a 1% loss in genetic material per generation. They were better than us. They're better at everything. Sitting, they're better at sitting than us. They're better at convincing themselves or whatever. They were better at everything, probably. Stronger, more capable. Huh? Probably bigger. Yeah. So Moshe taught them. Tried anyways, right? Yeah. So Deuteronomy 1:5, beyond the Jordan in the land of Moab, Moshe undertook to declare, this Torah, saying, Yahweh your Elohim spoke to us in Torah, saying, you have dwelt on this mountain long enough. Turn and set out on your way to go into the mountains of the Amorites, and all the neighboring places in the desert plain, in the mountains in the low country, in the Negev, the Yavin south, on the sea coast and in the land of the Canaanites, to Lebanon as far as the great river Euphrates. I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which Yahweh swore to your fathers, Abraham and Isaac, Yaakov to give them and their seed after them. If you notice, this ain't the land of Israel, is it? It's not just the land of Israel. It's all of it. All the way out to the Euphrates. Right? That's the promise that Abraham got. And he's telling this to Israel. It's huge.
Euphrates to the Nile. All that land.
If you know where Constantinople is, I think it's Constantinople, up there in the Black Sea, is where the Euphrates starts, comes all the way down to Turkey, and then goes all the way and cuts through over by Saudi Arabia. So all of Saudi Arabia, most of Turkey, a big chunk of Egypt and Ethiopia and all that stuff. It was all set aside for Abraham's children. So it says in, and you can check put that in here in the book of Galatians. It says that if you are of Messiah, you are Abraham's seed, heirs according to the promise. So he's reiterating the promise, right?
So in the Torah portion it says, don't take over the Moabites or the Edomites because they're your brothers.
Yeah.
So in that sense, are they also Abraham's children and they're heirs in the huge swath of land?
Yeah, if you look back, you'll see that Lot was his adopted son, right? It was his brother's child. His brother died in the wilderness, and Lot became his child. And when Sodom and Gomorrah were getting ready to be destroyed, that whole thing about the bargaining, right? If there are 50 righteous men in this land, well, I won't destroy it for 56. How about 45? Well, I won't destroy it for 45, right? All that because he was concerned about. He wasn't concerned about. Maybe he was, but primarily he was concerned about Lot and his family, right? There wasn't even found 10 righteous in that land. So, anyways, oh yeah, I wanted to show you this here, right? It said Moshe bar et HafTorah. I was just going to different page. No, it's right here. Declared this Torah. So that's what he did. Moshe declared the Torah. But if you see this here, if you look into some of the writings of some of the ancient Jewish writings, they say that if you see this, because this is a definite article that points to something, right? If you see the definite article pointing to something where it already has a definite article, they say it's a Messianic prophecy, right? So this is the Torah, HafTorah. So Aleph Tav, HafTorah. This in almost every translation never gets translated, right? It's like over almost 7,000 times or something like that. It doesn't get translated. So when you hear that Alpha and Omega, remember he didn't speak Greek, he spoke Hebrew. So they translate it over the Aleph Tav, and Yeshua says, "I am the Aleph Tav." He's talking about all those Aleph Tavs in there. It's kind of confirming this writing, I think, this idea that this is a Messianic prophecy. So it says that he is the living word, the word made flesh. I think these kinds of things right here are kind of pointing to that. Might be a deeper understanding than I got, but it's in there. For those more discerning. So the word here declared is ba'ar. Ba'ar is a primitive root, is to dig, or engrave, or to declare, make plain, right? That's his declaration. And it's related to this word here for a well, or a pit. And that's some interesting things about Isaac and the wells he dug here. So to explain, there you go, it shares fruit with the well or to dig. You have to dig deep to make the truth plain. Okay, cursory readings, glancing over things, not stopping and meditating on them, you're going to miss it. You're never going to get it. You got to dig deep. Sometimes when you read the Torah, you need instruction. You need someone to help you see things. Because sometimes you read it and you go, I know there's something here, and then all of a sudden somebody says something, and all of a sudden the light bulbs go off and all the tongue is put into place, right? So, do we need instruction on how to receive instruction? Yeah, I think so. You try to do it on your own, you don't do it very far. Okay, so the wells of Isaac, so these things are interesting. I watched the teaching and tied this to the wells of Isaac. It says, Yitzhak dug again the wells of water which they had dug in the days of Abraham his father. For the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham, and he called them by the names which his father called them. But when Yitzhak dug, when Yitzhak's servants dug, in the Wadi Mizrach Valley. He found a well of running water there, and the herdsmen of Gerar strove Yitzhak's herdsmen, saying, "This water is ours." So he called the name of the well Yitzhak, Esek, because they strove it. So there's a lot there about
They wanted that well.
wanted that well, right? And they filled in the well.
That's an artesian well that we're talking about.
It could be.
It's a running well.
It did flow, but the overarching theme of it is that you're in the desert, that's water, that's life. And the tie is that this Torah is life, right? It is, and Yeshua talked about how, it says about out of this side came flowing living waters, right? It's kind of the same thing. And if you think spiritually about the word being like a well, many have actually stopped them up for people. They have removed the keys of understanding so that people can't get it out, because they have done things like we talked about earlier with they teach you how to think about it before you ever read it. They tell you, oh, this is not about you, that's done away with, that's this, that, and other thing, right? There's the second part of it. And they dug another well, and they strove over that one too, and called its name Sitna. And they moved from there and dug another well, and they did not strive over that one, and its name is Rehoboth. And said, "For now Yahweh has made room for us, we shall be fruitful in the land." And from there he went up to Beersheba, or Beersheba. So there was restoration here at the end as well in Beersheba. So Abimelech came near to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, one of his friends, and Michael, the commander of the army. And Yitzhak said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing you have hated me, you have sent me away from you?" And they said, "We have clearly seen that Yahweh is with you." And we said, "Please, let there be an oath between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you do no evil to us, as we have not touched you, but we have only done good towards you and have sent you away in peace. You are now the blessed of Yahweh." So there's a restoration there, right? The nations are kind of coming, they're kind of seeing. Here it reminded me of the time where it says that thou shalt grab hold of the tzitzits of Jews, and they will say, "We have heard that God is with you," right? And that kind of seems like a little reiteration. So I remember we're talking like bloodline stuff. If you listen to what Paul said who was the one who was inwardly. So it wasn't wicked to be a Jew. It's not wrong. It's wrong to be a false one, right? It's wrong to be a liar. It's wrong to teach false doctrine. So it's good to be someone who is standing for truth and righteousness, regardless of who you are. So people will see you as that if you're doing the feast, reading the Torah, and whatnot. Anyways, the first well was called Esek, that means argument, and sometimes it means lawsuit. Sitna means accusation, the same root as Satan or Hasatan. Hasatan means enemy. Rehoboth means made room for us. Same root as Rahab, right? Rahab the harlot. Yeah,
Rehab.
Huh?
Rehab.
Rahab. And Beersheba means well of oath. They were asked for, that's where they asked for forgiveness. They wanted that oath, right? So a lack of knowledge. This is why we need to study the scriptures. We need not rely on denominational teachings, but we need to dig into the word. It's good to hear everybody, but you also have to learn how to weed the garden, right? The garden gets overgrown, and it needs to be weeds need to be plucked out. But it's kind of small. Sorry, should have made it multiple slides. Okay, so Hosea 4:1 says, "Hear the words of Yahweh, you children of Israel, for Yahweh has a case against the inhabitants of the land, where there is no truth or loving commitment or knowledge of Elohim in the land. Swearing and lying and murdering and stealing and committing adultery have increased, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Therefore the land mourns, and everyone living in it languishes with the beasts of the field and the birds of the heavens, and the fish of the sea are taken away. However, let no one strive or reprove one another, for your people are like those striving with a priest. And you shall stumble in the day, and the prophet shall stumble with you in the night, and I shall make your mother perish. my people have perished for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I am rejecting you from being priests. Since you have forgotten the Torah of your Elohim, as I also forget your children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. My esteem has been changed into shame. They changed his character, right? We have the exact same name, and they changed who he was. And so when they filled in the wells, you think about that, they filled them in with dirt, literally in the literal, but in a spiritual sense, it fills it in with false doctrine. So the idea, when Isaac has to go back through, he's got to dig out all the false doctrine and find the good living water, right? That is the word. Yeshua is the word. He wrote that word from the beginning. That was his finger. He came out the cloud and wrote on stones. He gave the commands to make the temple. It's his temple, right? So what wells of understanding has the enemy stopped up today, right? How does this apply to us? Is there anything, doctrine, stopping up the wells of your understanding? Can you go to the well of truth and justify everything you believe by 2 to 3 witnesses? If not, can you change from the error in your heart? Can you change when you soften it? If you read it, if you pray for the Spirit to give you strength to overcome. There's going to be many people that come out of the woodwork and they're going to challenge you, try to get you to stay in the status quo. When I started coming to faith, I had people, it was a battle to come to faith for me. Because I'd be like, well, why? What does the Bible say this? And some pastor would come out and say, oh, you don't have to worry about that, this, that, and the other. Oh, no, we don't do that anymore. Or Jesus did away with that. Or no, he did that, so we don't have to. Those are the things that I face day to day. I'm like, the word says this, and I don't see it anywhere in there. I don't see anything you're saying in here. So that still runs in us as we inherit it, right? Okay. I can go off of, I knew when I was moving this week, I had a whole lot more to say. But, a couple pages here, but yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, just like the Israelites, just like they added their traditions, and they put those traditions over the actual word of Yah. For the last 2,000 years, seminaries have built up traditions, pagan holidays, yes. And now they trump the word of Yah. They change the meanings of things. They change the Sabbath day. So that it's if anyone want, this is how I look at it. I don't put down Jews for what they did because it's imperfect in your nature to do those things. That's what we're warned not to do it. But non-Jews have done the same thing that the Jews did for 2,000 years. So it just goes to show that they have the same puppeteer behind them, and that's Hasatan.
That's a good correlation there, because it infiltrates every aspect of knowledge. The liar is in our midst, and he's constantly will take truths and try to twist them around.
It's easy to see that our came originally out of Catholicism, and the church taught me, with their catechism and all that, well, the church put together the Bible and decided which books belong in the Bible, therefore the church has authority over the Bible. And so tradition trumps, not that the president had anything to do with it, but tradition trumps the scripture. In reality, the scripture that applies, Romans 12 says, do not think more highly of yourself than you ought to think. So that's what they're doing there, and you have an inflated view of their own expertise and authority. And so much so that I notice about all these religions, that's what they all have in common. It's like, well, no, I'm the one who decides what God's word is, what is authoritative. And that's the same thing with the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You get to decide what's right and what's wrong, right? So, I mean, wow, that is consistent, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a Burger King cake, right? You can have your way. So you'll even see that, like, even if you do a little bit of studying in Islam, you'll see that they got the Quran, but a lot of times they got these other writings that they even hold higher than that, which is where they get a lot of their practices. Oh yeah. So the kind of the gist of it is that, like, with Moshe not being ready, right? He wasn't ready. He didn't feel ready. We all kind of feel that way. We all get thrown into something and don't feel like we're the man for the job, right? If you do kind of feel like you're the person for the job, you maybe want to stop and take a look at yourself for a minute, because it's kind of scary. There's a double judgment for those who have to stand and teach. You're accountable, and he's going to call you into reckoning one day. So but Yahweh, he equips us to walk in his Torah, not contrary to it. Okay, as long as we remember that. He didn't give you all this word for it to be done away with. He gave it to you to bless your life. If you remember the phrase, he who does it shall live in it, right? The purpose of it was for your good, it was for your life. Every little bit of it, even the parts that you don't like, even the parts that you think are like bad for you, or you're like, oh, that's not fair, all of it was good for you.
Blessing and curse.
Everything, yeah. So it's not doing it is what hurts you.
I have a question for the group. You had mentioned a couple of verses on there speaking about how they had done abominations on the land. And therefore, when you do that in the land, you'll be evicted from the land. So it seems like Yah made a covenant with Abraham for his seed to inherit the land. But that was contingent on his seed following the instructions to stand on it. So when Israel, in Jeremiah 3, we know that Yah gave them a certificate of divorce. So when they received that certificate of divorce, they were removed from the land.
Yes.
They were vomited out, yep.
But the people while they were out of the land, he didn't divorce them so that he didn't have a connection with them anymore. He just evicted them off the land, because when you turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 30, this is after they had been kicked out of the land. Verse 30 says, and Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Yehudah, and he also wrote letters to Ephraim, to Manasseh, to come to the house of Yah at Jerusalem to perform the Pesach to Yahweh Elohim of Israel. And it brings it 5. Many people from the 5 tribes who were kicked out of the land, they came back to Jerusalem, and they started the appointed times again. Which just goes to show Yah in his loving kindness and his mercy, he's never changed. Even though you do something wrong, or the generation before you has done something wrong, he doesn't totally cut you off from a relationship with him. You may have to suffer the effects or suffer the consequences of what you did to the land, but that doesn't mean that if you don't truly repent of what you have done, that he won't allow you to come back. So even though he kicked them off the land, they were still welcome to come back if they changed their heart.
Yes.
What was that address, Bubba?
It was 2 Chronicles chapter 30.
30,
Did you want to say something, June?
You go first, brother.
Okay, I was just going to say about the whole, so there's a teaching out there that in the land, Benjamin joined Judah, Benjamin and Judah, right? I don't agree with that teaching. And because when it does say that Benjamin joined Judah, that they were going to go and they were going to gather the northern kingdom back, right? When they decided to separate out of Jeroboam. The problem is a little bit later on, it says that the prophet came and said, every one of you go back to your tents, this is for me. And if you keep reading on in Chronicles, you'll see that it says that the Levites later on started joining themselves back to, they started leaving all of the northern kingdoms because of the abominations that were being done in the northern kingdom, and they joined with Judah. It also says that there were a remnant from every tribe that joined Judah as well and decided to follow the king of Judah. So when you hear that Mordecai, the Benjamite, right? called him a Jew, but he was from the tribe of Benjamin, right? And you hear about this in the book of Esther. That's okay, because there were Benjamites in the mix. There were Ephraimites and Danites and all that. Primarily, it was the tribe of Levi that joined. So those two tribes were together. Levi had no portion, so the 11 portions that there were, that's all there were 11 portions. So Levi joined Judah. Benjamin, primarily, the bulk of Benjamin got dispersed with everybody else. Because Paul is Benjamin, right? And he's from Tarshish. Tarshish is in Turkey. He was dispersed, his heart turned and he came back, right? He says, as much as to say, I'm a Jew of a Jew, I'm a Pharisee of Pharisees, right? So he turned back. So they were that is an example of someone who turned back. And kind of maybe got the sense that they were actually gathering some people from the dispersed, that they did know at one time where the dispersed were, gathering them and making the Sanhedrin at the time out of it, possibly. I don't know if that's a fact, but it was just kind of a thought that I had, that maybe they were gathering these people to be a part of the Sanhedrin, so we still have a representative for every tribe.
Right. So, from the beginning, again, from the Adam and Eve, they got kicked out from the side of the Father. They can't go back. They're not allowed to enter and have fellowship with the Father because of the sin. But the Father didn't forget them. Same as in Mitzrayim, they've been crying.
Yeah.
And he said, I heard your cry.
Yeah.
So even though they are sinful, they forget him. He's still hearing their cries.
Yeah.
So again, but again, the thing is, he got divorced. That's a rule.
Yeah.
Unless the husband will die,
Yes.
they can't go back.
Yeah.
That's the reason Yahshua died, so that they will have that, right to go back to the husband is Yahshua.
Yes.
And that's that's where the solution is. And again, same as with Shaul, he said, hey, I'm a Jew of a Jew.
Yeah.
But even though he's from Benjamin, because that's then I will say, hey, I'm not American. Even though I'm not really white, I can claim that I'm an American.
Sure.
Even though I'm Asian of descent, I will say, hey, I'm an American. So that's
Not in his kingdom, you're not.
yeah, that's probably what happened in there. But I read something that during those times when people are coming back to the nation, the newly formed nation of Israel, that they have to convert
In that time.
into Judaism and be transforming that system, and then they will say, hey, I'm a Jew. I'm no longer Dan. I'm no longer Benjamin. I'm a Jew.
Right.
So again, it's probably another trick of the enemy.
Yeah.
Because in the kingdom there will be 12 gates.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying, is that's going to be your heritage, right, brother? Israel. So there's 12 gates. Above every gate is a name of the son of the tribe of son of Israel. And there's no other gates.
No Gentile gate.
No Gentile gate. There's no denomination. You can take your denomination and you can hold the card up and you can look above each person gate and you're not going to find it there unless it says this tribe, that tribe, the other tribe, right? Yeah, so any other comments?
Is this time of Midrash?
Yeah.
We're going to end the stream, so thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Okay, see you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.